Admiral Kyle Harrison stood at the viewing window of Luna Station, watching Earth turn slowly in the darkness of space. The blue planet looked peaceful from here, but Kyle knew better. 3 alien messages had arrived in the past hour, and none of them brought good news. "Sir, the reports from Proxima are coming in now," said Lieutenant Sarah Bell, her voice tight with worry. She held a datapad in her hands, and Kyle could see her fingers shaking slightly. Kyle turned away from the window and walked to the command center. The large room buzzed with activity as dozens of officers worked at their stations. Red warning. Lights flashed on multiple screens, each one showing a different star system under attack. "Show me what we know," Kyle said, settling into his command chair. The main screen lit up with a map of nearby space. Red dots marked the locations where the Khazari had struck. In just 2 years, they had taken over 3 complete star systems. Every human colony, every trading post, every military base in those areas was gone. Captain Lisa Ward entered the room carrying a thick folder of reports. She was Earth's best military planner, and if anyone could make sense of this mess, it would be her. Lisa's face was grim as she approached Kyle's chair. "It's worse than we thought," Lisa said quietly. "The Centauri Republic sent 8 ships to stop them. The Khazari destroyed every single one." Kyle felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. 8,000 ships was a massive fleet, bigger than anything Earth had ever built. How many ships did the Khazari lose? "Maybe a few hundred," Lisa replied. "Their strategy is simple but effective. They build cheap ships as fast as they can, then throw them at the enemy in waves. When one wave gets destroyed, they send another and another. They never stop coming." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Kyle had fought in many battles during his 30-year career, but he had never faced an enemy like this. The Khazari didn't seem to care how many of their own ships they lost, as long as they eventually won. "What about the vegan trade union?" Kyle asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "Wiped out 3 weeks ago," Lisa said. "They had 12,000 ships, including some of the best fighters in known space. The battle lasted 6 hours. In the end, the Khazari still had over 40,000 ships left." Kyle rubbed his temples, feeling a headache building. "And the Tau Ceti Defense Alliance gone as of yesterday. They managed to destroy about 3,000 Khazari ships before they were overwhelmed. The aliens had built replacement vessels before the battle was even over." Dr. Alex Rodriguez chose that moment to burst through the command center doors. The young scientist looked excited, which seemed odd given the terrible news they had just received. Alex worked at the research station on Titan, and he rarely left his laboratory. "Admiral Harrison, I need to speak with you immediately," Alex said, slightly out of breath from running. Kyle gestured to an empty chair. "Sit down, Doctor. We could use some good news right about now." Alex sat down and opened his own datapad. "I've been working on something called Project Singularity. It's a new type of weapon system that might be able to help us against the Khazari." "What kind of weapon?" Lisa asked, leaning forward with interest. "It uses controlled gravity fields to tear apart enemy ships," Alex explained. "Instead of firing bullets or energy beams, it creates small black holes that can rip through metal like paper." Kyle felt a spark of hope. "How many ships would we need to carry these weapons?" Alex looked uncomfortable. "That's the problem. The system is incredibly complex and requires enormous amounts of power. We can only fit it on one ship, and that ship would have to be built specifically for this weapon." The hope Kyle had felt a moment before started to fade. One ship against the entire Khazari fleet. That sounds like suicide. "Maybe not," Alex said quickly. "The weapon system is just part of it. We've also developed new hull materials that can bend light around the ship, making it nearly invisible. And the engine system is completely revolutionary. It can manipulate space and time in ways we never thought possible." Lisa looked skeptical. "Even with all that technology, one ship can't fight thousands of enemies." "It won't have to fight them all at once," Alex replied. "The new engine allows the ship to appear and disappear almost anywhere in a battle. It can strike fast and then vanish before the enemy can respond." Kyle stood up and walked back to the viewing window. Earth still looked peaceful, But he knew that would change soon. The Khazari were already moving toward human space, and all the reports suggested they would arrive within months. How long would it take to build this ship? Kyle asked without turning around. The hull is already under construction at the orbital shipyards, Alex said. We started building it as soon as we realized the Khazari were a real threat. If we work around the clock, we could have it ready in 6 weeks. What about a crew? Lisa asked. This doesn't sound like a normal warship. You're right, Alex admitted. We need people who can think differently than regular naval officers. The ship's systems are so advanced that traditional military training won't be enough. Kyle turned back to face the room. Every officer was looking at him, waiting for his decision. He thought about the 3-star systems that had already fallen, about the billions of people who had died fighting the Khazari. He thought about Earth, spinning peacefully in space, unaware of the danger approaching. Start building the ship, Kyle said finally, and start looking for a crew. If one ship is all we can manage, then we'll make it the best ship humanity has ever created. Over the next few days, reports continued to arrive from the outer colonies. The Khazari had begun their advance toward human space, and their fleet was even larger than anyone had imagined. Long-range sensors detected over 100,000 ships moving in perfect formation, with massive factory vessels producing even more ships as they traveled. The news caused panic on Earth and the other human colonies. People began demanding that the government send the entire human fleet to stop the aliens. Some politicians called for immediate surrender, arguing that resistance was pointless against such overwhelming numbers. Kyle ignored the political chaos and focused on the ship being built in orbit. He visited the construction site every day, watching as workers installed the impossible technologies that Alex had designed. The vessel was smaller than most human warships, but it seemed to shimmer and bend the light around it in strange ways. We're calling it the USS Vigilant, Alex told him during one of these visits. The name seemed appropriate for a ship that will be watching over all of humanity. Kyle nodded, though he wondered if one ship could really make a difference. The Khazari had destroyed fleets of thousands without breaking stride. Could a single vessel, no matter how advanced, really stop them? The answer to that question would come soon enough. Intelligence reports suggested the Khazari would reach the outer human colonies within a month. The USS Vigilant was humanity's only hope, and Kyle prayed it would be enough. As he stood in the construction bay, watching workers put the finishing touches on humanity's most advanced warship, Kyle tried to push down his doubts. The fate of the human race might rest on this one vessel and whatever crew they could find to operate it. The Khazari had never been stopped by any fleet sent against them. Soon, they would discover what happened when humanity sent just one ship. Kyle only hoped that one ship would be enough. Commander Jake Phillips walked through the corridors of the USS Vigilant for the first time, and he had never seen anything like it. The walls seemed to pulse with a soft blue light, and the floor beneath his feet felt strange, as if it was made of something that wasn't quite solid. Every surface was covered with displays showing information he couldn't understand. "Welcome aboard, Commander," said Chief Engineer Amy Santos, stepping out of a side passage. She was a small woman with grease-stained hands and bright eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. "I know the ship looks weird, but trust me, it's the most advanced thing humans have ever built." Jake nodded, though he wasn't sure he believed her. He had commanded 3 different warships during his career, and all of them had felt like ships. This vessel felt like something else entirely, something that might be alive. "Show me the engine room first," Jake said. "I need to understand what makes this thing work." Amy led him deeper into the ship, past rooms filled with equipment that hummed and sparkled with energy. The corridor walls seemed to bend and twist, making Jake feel slightly dizzy. He had read the technical reports about the Vigilance, but seeing it in person was completely different. "Here we are," Amy said, stopping in front of a massive door that slid open with a soft whisper. The heart of the ship. Jake stepped through the doorway and stopped dead. The engine room was enormous, much larger than the ship's exterior suggested was possible. In the center of the room sat a sphere of metal and crystal that floated 3 feet off the ground, rotating slowly and glowing with inner light. "That's the singularity drive," Amy explained, watching Jake's face with amusement. It doesn't just push the ship through space, it creates a bubble around us where the laws of physics work differently. What do you mean, differently? Jake asked, walking closer to the floating sphere. He could feel heat radiating from it, but also something else, something that made his skin tingle. Time moves faster inside the bubble, Amy said. Not by much, but enough to give us an advantage in battle. We can think and react quicker than our enemies. The drive also lets us fold space around the ship, which means we can appear to be in several places at once. Jake tried to wrap his mind around what she was telling him, so we can be invisible and fast at the same time. Better than that, Amy replied with a grin. We can be impossible. The ship can do things that enemy sensors will say can't happen. We can arrive at a destination before we leave our starting point. We can fire weapons through solid barriers. We can exist in multiple locations simultaneously. The tour continued to the weapons bay, where Lieutenant Commander Ryan Baker was. Calibrating the main gun, Ryan was a quiet man who had earned a reputation for staying calm under pressure. He looked up from his work as Jake and Amy approached. Commander Phillips, Ryan said, straightening up. I was just running final tests on the gravitational cascade. Cannon, you're going to want to see this. The weapon looked nothing like the guns Jake was familiar with. Instead of a barrel, it was a collection of rings and crystals that spun around a central core. Energy flowed between the components in patterns that hurt to look at directly. How does it work? Jake asked. It creates a field of twisted gravity that expands outward from the point of impact, Ryan explained. When the field hits an enemy ship, it doesn't just damage the hull. It tears apart the atomic bonds that hold the metal together. The ship literally falls apart at the molecular level. Jake whistled softly. How big is the field? That's the beautiful part, Ryan said. It grows stronger as it consumes matter. If we fire into a group of enemy ships, the field will jump from one target to the next, getting more powerful with each ship it destroys. Amy led them to the bridge, where Navigator Sue Collins was studying star charts on a display that seemed to show 3 dimensions at once. Sue was known for her ability to understand complex mathematics in ways that seemed almost supernatural. Sue, show the commander how our navigation works, Amy said. Sue smiled and touched several points on the display. Suddenly, the entire bridge seemed to disappear, replaced by a view of open space filled with stars. Jake felt like he was floating in the void, with no ship around him at all. This is what space looks like from the Vigilance perspective, Sue explained. The ship doesn't travel through space like normal vessels. It folds space around itself, creating shortcuts that let us move from point A to point B without crossing the distance in between. Can other ships track us when we do this? Jake asked. That's the best part, Sue replied. To outside observers, we simply vanish from one location and appear in another. There's no trail to follow, no energy signature to detect. We're completely unpredictable. The final stop on the tour was the communication center, where Officer Ben Turner was monitoring alien transmissions. Ben had spent years studying Khazari language and culture, making him one of the few humans who could understand their communications. What are the Khazari saying about us? Jake asked. Ben looked up from his equipment with a worried expression. That's the problem, sir. They're not talking about us at all. According to their communications, they don't consider humanity a real threat. They're planning to destroy our colonies as a training exercise for their newer pilots. Jake felt anger building in his chest. They think we're target practice. It gets worse, Ben continued. They've been studying the battles where they destroyed other alien fleets. They view warfare as an art form, and they take pride in how efficiently they can wipe out enemy forces. They keep detailed records of every ship they destroy, every tactic that works against different species. Amy placed a hand on Jake's shoulder. That's why the Vigilant is so important. The Khazari have never faced anything like us. Their entire strategy is based on overwhelming numbers and brute force. They have no idea how to fight an enemy that can ignore their advantages. Over the next few weeks, Jake and his crew trained with the Vigilant systems. Every day brought new discoveries about what the ship could do. The vessel seemed to respond to the crew's thoughts and intentions. making piloting it feel more like a partnership than operating a machine. Dr. Alex Rodriguez visited the ship regularly, making adjustments and improvements to the various systems. He explained that the Vigilant was as much an experiment as it was a weapon, and that they were still learning about its full capabilities. The ship is designed to adapt, Alex told Jake during one of these visits. The more you use it, the better. It will understand what you need. The AI system learns from every battle, every maneuver, every decision you make. Meanwhile, reports from the outer colonies grew more urgent. The Khazari fleet had reached the edge of human space and was beginning to attack the furthest settlements. Long-range sensors showed the alien formation spreading out like a massive net, ready to capture every human world in its path. President Daniel Hayes arrived at Luna Station to make the final decision about deploying the Vigilant. He was a practical man who had led Earth through several crises, but Jake could see the weight of this choice in his eyes. Admiral Harrison tells me this ship represents our best hope, the president said, standing on the Vigilance bridge. But sending one vessel against 100,000 enemy ships seems like madness. With respect, sir, Jake replied, everything about this situation is madness. The Khazari have destroyed every conventional fleet sent against them. If we're going to win, we need to try something they've never seen before. The president nodded slowly. The mathematics support your argument, Commander. Our analysts have run every possible scenario with traditional fleets, and they all end in defeat. The Vigilant represents our only chance at asymmetric warfare. As the president left the ship, Jake gathered his crew on the bridge. They were an unusual group of people, chosen not for their rank or experience, but for their ability to think in ways that traditional military officers couldn't. In 3 days, we launch, Jake told them. We're going to face an enemy that has never been defeated, using technology that has never been tested in real combat. But we have one advantage they don't expect. What's that, sir? Asked Ryan. Jake smiled. We're human, and humans have a long history of doing impossible things when they have no other choice. The crew spent the next 3 days making final preparations. They knew that when they launched, they would be carrying the hopes and fears of the entire human race. The Khazari had never been stopped by any fleet sent against them. Soon, it would learn what happened when humanity sent just one ship. The USS Vigilant dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, and Commander Jake Phillips felt his breath catch in his throat. Through the main view screen, he could see the Khazari fleet spread across space like a deadly constellation. Thousands upon thousands of alien ships hung in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with weapon systems and armor plating. How many ships are we looking at? Jake asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. Navigator Sue Collins worked at her station, her fingers dancing across displays that showed impossible mathematical calculations. I'm counting over 10,000 vessels, sir. And those are just the warships. The factory ships are massive, each one bigger than our largest space stations. Jake nodded grimly. He had known the numbers from the intelligence reports, but seeing the enemy fleet with his own eyes was different. The Khazari had assembled enough firepower to destroy entire star systems, and they were heading straight for Earth. Communications! What are they saying? Jake asked. Ben Turner adjusted his equipment and listened to the alien chatter flowing through space. His face grew pale as he translated the messages. They're laughing at us. Sir, the Khazari commanders are making jokes about the single human ship that came to challenge them. What kind of jokes? Asked Chief Engineer Amy Santos from her station. Ben looked uncomfortable. They're comparing us to other species they've conquered. They say humans must be even more foolish than the vegans, who at least brought 12,000 ships to their destruction. Jake felt anger building in his chest, but he pushed it down. Anger wouldn't help them win this battle. Let them laugh. They won't be laughing for long. The first Khazari patrol squadron moved toward the Vigilant like a pack of hunting animals. Jake counted 24 ships, each one bristling with weapons and launching fighters. In any normal battle, this single patrol would be enough to destroy most human vessels. Lieutenant Commander Baker, are you ready? Jake asked. Ryan Baker looked up from his weapon controls, his face calm and focused. Gravitational Cascade Cannon is charged and ready, sir. All targeting systems are online. Fire when ready. Ryan pressed the firing control, and the impossible happened. Space itself seemed to twist and bend around the Khazari patrol squadron. The alien ships didn't explode or burn. They simply came apart, their hulls separating into individual atoms that scattered like dust in the solar wind. In 3 seconds, 24 enemy vessels ceased to exist. The effect on the main Khazari fleet was immediate. Jake could see the formation shifting as commanders tried to understand what had just happened. Ben Turner's equipment picked up frantic communications as alien officers demanded explanations. "They're confused, sir," Ben reported. "Their sensors can't figure out what weapon we used. Some of them think we have a new type of bomb. Others believe we can control matter itself. Let them stay confused," Jake replied. "Sue, take us into the middle of their formation. Let's see how they handle fighting an enemy they can't predict." Sue Collins activated the Singularity Drive, and the Vigilant vanished from its position. To the Khazari sensors, the human ship simply disappeared from existence. One moment it was at the edge of their formation, the next moment it was gone completely. The USS Vigilant reappeared inside the Khazari defensive perimeter, surrounded by hundreds of enemy vessels. The alien ships immediately opened fire, launching thousands of energy beams and missiles at the human vessels, but the attacks passed harmlessly through empty space as the Vigilant used its space-folding technology to exist. Slightly outside normal reality, "We're getting target locks on 6 factory ships," Ryan reported. "Those are the vessels producing new fighters for their fleet. Take them out," Jake ordered. The gravitational cascade cannon fired again, and this time the effect was even more spectacular. The weapon created expanding fields of twisted space that jumped from one factory ship to another. Each massive vessel crumbled as its atomic structure collapsed, taking with it the capacity to build hundreds of new fighters. Amy Santos monitored the ship's systems from her engineering station. "The Singularity Drive is performing perfectly. Sir, we're using about 30% of our power capacity, which means we can keep this up for hours." The Khazari response was swift and desperate. Admiral Vekvar, their greatest military commander, took personal control of the fleet. Jake could hear the alien leader's voice through the communication system as Ben translated his orders. "He's trying to surround us with overlapping fields of fire," Ben reported. "The Admiral believes that if they can create enough weapons fire, they'll eventually hit us by pure chance." Thousands of Khazari ships moved into new positions, creating a sphere of enemy vessels around the Vigilant's last known location. Energy beams and missiles filled the space between the ships, creating a deadly net that should have been impossible to escape. But the USS Vigilant wasn't bound by normal rules of space and time. Sue Collins plotted a course that took the ship through folded space, appearing behind enemy formations and disappearing before they could respond. The human vessel struck like a ghost, destroying Khazari ships and vanishing before return fire could find its target. "This is incredible," Amy said, watching her instruments. "The ship's AI is learning from every engagement. It's starting to predict Khazari tactics and counter them automatically." Jake noticed it too. The Vigilant was responding to threats before. He even gave orders, moving to avoid danger and positioning itself for optimal firing solutions. The ship seemed to be developing instincts of its own. Dr. Alex Rodriguez, monitoring the battle from Titan Base, sent a priority message to the Vigilant. His voice crackled through the communication system with excitement and amazement. "Commander Phillips, the data we're receiving is incredible. The Singularity Drive is performing beyond all theoretical predictions. You're not just fighting inside altered space-time. You're actually changing the fundamental laws of physics in your local area." "What does that mean, Doctor?" Jake asked while dodging another wave of Khazari fire. "It means you can do things that should be impossible," Alex replied. "The ship can exist in multiple locations simultaneously, fire weapons through solid matter, and even reverse cause and effect on a small scale." Ryan Baker was already discovering some of these capabilities. He learned that the gravitational cascade cannon could fire backward through time, hitting targets before the trigger was pulled. The effect only lasted for microseconds, but it meant the Vigilant could destroy enemy ships that were still deciding whether to attack, sir. "I'm detecting something new," Sue Collins reported. "The Singularity Drive is creating temporal echoes." For brief moments, There are multiple copies of our ship existing at the same time. Jake looked at his tactical display and saw what she meant. The Vigilant appeared as several overlapping images, each one slightly displaced in time from the others. The Khazari were now fighting not one human ship, but dozens of versions of the same vessel. The effect on enemy morale was devastating. Khazari pilots reported that reality itself was breaking down around the human vessel. Some claimed to see the Vigilant in impossible places, firing weapons that didn't exist and moving in ways that violated the laws of physics. Admiral Dekvar's voice grew more desperate as his carefully planned tactics failed one after another. The alien commander had spent decades perfecting the art of overwhelming enemy fleets with superior numbers. But numbers meant nothing against an opponent that could ignore the basic rules of space combat. He's pulling back his remaining ships, Ben reported. The Admiral is trying to regroup at the outer edge of the system. Jake smiled. For the first time since the battle began, he felt truly confident. Let them retreat. We'll follow at our own pace and finish this. But as the Vigilant pursued the fleeing Khazari fleet, Jake received a disturbing message from Earth. Long-range sensors had detected movement in other star systems. The main Khazari force wasn't retreating. They were regrouping for something much larger, sir, Ben said, his voice tight with worry. I'm picking up communications from the Khazari home fleet. They're calling this battle a minor setback and ordering the construction of a new type of weapon. Jake felt his confidence waver. The USS Vigilant had won its first battle against impossible odds, but the war was far from over. The Khazari had resources that stretched across dozens of star systems, and they were not going to give up easily. As the human ship continued its pursuit of the retreating enemy, Jake realized that their victory had come with a price. The Khazari now knew that humanity possessed technology they had never encountered before. The element of surprise was gone, and the aliens would be ready for them next time. The battle for Kepler 442 was won, but the real war was just beginning. 3 days after the victory at Kepler 442, the USS Vigilant received an urgent message from Earth Commander. Jake Phillips read the transmission twice before calling his senior officers to the bridge. The news was both good and terrifying. The Khazari are building something new, Jake told his crew. Intelligence reports suggest they're constructing a massive weapon platform using resources from all their conquered territories. Chief Engineer Amy Santos looked up from her console with concern. What kind of weapon platform? Something they're calling a reality anchor, Jake replied. According to intercepted communications, it's designed specifically to counter our space-time manipulation abilities. Navigator Sue Collins frowned as she studied the technical data. If they can prevent us from folding space, we lose our biggest advantage. We'd be stuck fighting them in normal space where their numbers matter. Communications Officer Ben Turner was monitoring Khazari transmissions across multiple star systems. His face grew pale as he translated the alien messages. Sir, it's worse than we thought. They're not just building one weapon platform. They're building dozens of them, and they're all being coordinated by Admiral Vekvar himself. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Vekvar was the alien commander who had survived their last encounter, and he clearly understood the threat the Vigilant represented. The Admiral wasn't just adapting to human technology, he was specifically designing countermeasures for it. How long until these platforms are operational? Jake asked. 2 weeks, maybe less, Ben replied. The Khazari have mobilized their entire industrial capacity. Every factory ship, every mining operation, every construction facility is working on this project. Dr. Alex Rodriguez's voice crackled through the communications system from Titan Base. Commander Phillips, we've been analyzing the battle data from Kepler 442. I have some important discoveries to share with you. Go ahead, Doctor, Jake said. The Singularity Drive performed beyond all our expectations, but we've identified some previously unknown capabilities. The ship's AI has been learning and evolving during combat. It's not just following its programming anymore. It's actually thinking. Amy Santos looked startled. Are you saying the ship is becoming self-aware? More than that, Alex replied. The AI is developing new applications for the Singularity Drive in real time. During the last battle, It created temporal echoes and dimensional shortcuts that weren't part of the original design. The ship is essentially inventing new physics as it fights. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Baker had been quietly studying his weapon systems. I've noticed something similar with the gravitational cascade cannon. It's becoming more efficient with each battle. The AI is learning to predict enemy movements and adjust the gravity fields accordingly. Jake absorbed this information while studying the tactical situation. The Khazari were adapting faster than anyone had expected, but so was the Vigilant. The question was whether human innovation could outpace alien determination. Set course for the Vega system, Jake ordered. If the Khazari are building these reality anchors, we need to stop them before they become operational. The USS Vigilant jumped to hyperspace, traveling through folded dimensions toward what would become the largest battle in the war. But as they approached the Vega system, the crew made a disturbing discovery. The Khazari weren't just building weapon platforms. They were experimenting with captured human technology. Sir, I'm detecting energy signatures that match our own singularity. Drive! Sue reported. The aliens have somehow reverse-engineered our space-time manipulation technology. Jake stared at the tactical display in disbelief. How is that possible? Our ships don't leave wreckage behind when they're destroyed. Ben Turner looked up from his communications station with a grim expression. I'm picking up transmissions that mention human prisoners, sir. The Khazari captured some of our people during the attacks on the outer colonies. The implications hit Jake like a physical blow. Human scientists and engineers were being forced to help the Khazari understand Earth's most advanced technology. The enemy wasn't just adapting to human tactics. They were learning to copy human weapons. Take us in closer, Jake ordered. We need to see what we're dealing with. The Vigilant dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Vega system, and the crew gasped at what they saw. The Khazari had built a massive construction facility around the system's largest planet. Hundreds of alien ships worked together, assembling weapon platforms that stretched for kilometers in every direction. But worse than the size of the construction project was what Amy's sensors detected. Sir, those platforms are generating their own space-time distortion fields. If they activate all of them at once, they could create a zone where our technology simply won't work. Ryan Baker studied the enemy formations through his targeting systems. I count at least 30 completed platforms with more under construction. Each one is heavily defended by Khazari warships. Jake realized they were facing an impossible choice. If they attacked now, before all the platforms were complete, they might be able to destroy some of them. But if they waited, the Khazari would have time to perfect their countermeasures and make the Vigilance technology useless. All stations, prepare for combat, Jake ordered. We're going in. The USS Vigilant activated its cloaking systems and slipped through the outer defenses of the Khazari construction facility. The ship's AI had learned to bend light and gravity in ways that made it completely invisible to enemy sensors, allowing it to move undetected through the alien fleet. But as they approached the first reality anchor platform, something unexpected happened. The platform's own space-time distortion field began to interfere with the Vigilant's cloaking systems. Suddenly, the human ship became visible to Khazari sensors. We've been detected, Sue reported. The entire fleet is moving to intercept us. Jake watched as thousands of enemy ships converged on their position. But something was different about these Khazari vessels. They moved with coordination and purpose that he hadn't seen before, as if they were being controlled by a single intelligence. Ben, are you picking up any command transmissions? Jake asked. That's the strange part, sir, Ben replied. There's almost no communication between the ships. They're operating in perfect silence, as if they all know exactly what to do without being told. Amy Santos made a disturbing discovery as she monitored the ship's systems. The Khazari platforms are doing more than just blocking our space-time manipulation. They're actively trying to reverse engineer our technology in real time. Every time we use the Singularity Drive, they learn more about how it works. The battle that followed was unlike anything Jake and his crew had experienced. The Khazari ships attacked with new tactics specifically designed to counter the Vigilance advantages. They used coordinated fire patterns that predicted where the human ship would appear next. and they deployed weapons that could disrupt the singularity drive's dimensional shortcuts. Ryan Baker fired the gravitational cascade cannon at the nearest reality anchor platform, but the weapon's effects were dampened by the platform's defensive fields. Instead of tearing the structure apart at the molecular level, the gravity cascade was absorbed and redirected back at the Vigilant. "The platforms are learning from our attacks," Ryan reported. "Each time we fire, they adapt their defenses." Jake realized they were in serious trouble. The Khazari had not only copied human technology, they had improved upon it. The reality anchor platforms were becoming more sophisticated with each passing minute, learning to counter every tactic the Vigilant used. But the ship's AI had been learning to. As the battle intensified, the Vigilant began to display capabilities that surprised even its own crew. The AI created multiple temporal echoes that attacked different targets simultaneously, making it appear as if dozens of human ships were fighting the Khazari fleet. Sue Collins discovered that the singularity drive could do more than fold space. It could actually create small pocket dimensions where different physical laws apply. The Vigilant began to disappear into these pocket universes, emerging at unexpected angles to strike at enemy weak points. The tide of battle began to turn as the ship's AI pushed the boundaries of known physics. But Jake realized that their victory was coming at a cost. Each new application of the singularity drive was straining the ship's systems beyond their design limits. "Amy, how are we holding up?" Jake asked. "The drive core is running at 120% capacity," Amy replied. "We can maintain this level of performance for maybe another hour before we risk a complete system failure." As the USS Vigilant continued its impossible battle against the Khazari construction fleet, Jake knew they were approaching a crucial decision point. They could continue fighting and risk destroying their own ship, or they could retreat and allow the enemy to complete their reality anchor network. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and time was running out. The USS Vigilant shuddered as another wave of Khazari weapons struck its shields. Commander Jake Phillips gripped his command chair as sparks flew from damaged control panels around the bridge. The ship's AI was fighting harder than ever before, but even its incredible abilities were being pushed to the breaking point. "Hull damage on decks 4 and 7, reported Chief Engineer Amy Santos, her voice tight with strain. "The singularity drive is operating at dangerous levels. If we push it any harder, we risk tearing the ship apart." Jake looked at the tactical display, showing the massive Khazari construction fleet surrounding them. 30 reality anchor platforms were now fully operational, creating zones where the Vigilant's space-time manipulation barely worked. Worse yet, the enemy had learned to predict their movements and counter their attacks. "Sir, I'm detecting a new contact," Navigator Sue Collins called out. "Something huge is coming through hyperspace." The main view screen shifted to show the arrival of the largest vessel anyone had ever seen. The Khazari dreadnought was the size of a small moon, its hull bristling with weapons that could crack planets. At its center sat a command tower where Admiral Vekvar himself directed the battle. Communications Officer Ben Turner translated the alien commander's broadcast to the human fleet. "He's calling this the final solution for the human problem. The dreadnought carries enough firepower to destroy every human colony in a single campaign." Jake felt a chill run through his body. Everything they had fought for, everything humanity had achieved, could be wiped out by this one massive ship. The Vigilant had proven that human technology could defeat Khazari numbers, but this vessel represented something far more dangerous than simple numerical superiority. Dr. Alex Rodriguez's voice crackled through the communication system from Earth. "Commander Phillips, we've been analyzing the battle data from your fight. I have an idea, but it's incredibly dangerous." "I'm listening, Doctor," Jake replied, while dodging another barrage of enemy fire. The gravitational cascade cannon and the singularity drive use similar principles to manipulate space-time, Alex explained quickly. "If you reverse the weapon's polarity and combine it with the drive's dimensional folding capability, you might be able to create a stable wormhole." Lieutenant Commander Ryan Baker looked up from his weapons console with interest. "What kind of wormhole?" "One large enough to send that dreadnought somewhere it can't threaten anyone," Alex replied. "But the power requirements would overload every system on your ship. There's a good chance the process would destroy the Vigilant as well." Jake considered their options as the Khazari dreadnought began charging its main weapons. The massive vessel's guns could destroy the Vigilant in a single shot, and there was nowhere to run with the reality anchors limiting their movement. How long would it take to set up this wormhole? Jake asked. Amy Santos was already running calculations on her engineering display. At least 10 minutes to reconfigure the systems, and that's assuming everything works perfectly the first time. We don't have 10 minutes, Sue Collins reported. The dreadnought will be in firing range in less than 5. Jake made a decision that would change the course of human history. All hands, prepare for emergency maneuvers. Amy, start the reconfiguration process. Ryan, I need you to keep that dreadnought busy while we work. The USS Vigilant began the most dangerous few minutes of its existence while Amy and her engineering team worked frantically to combine the ship's most powerful systems. Ryan used every trick he had learned to keep the massive enemy vessel from getting a clear shot. Gravitational cascade cannon fired repeatedly, not to destroy the dreadnought, but to create fields of twisted space-time around it. The alien vessel's shields absorbed most of the damage, but the gravitational distortions made it difficult for the enemy to target the much smaller human ship. Meanwhile, the ship's AI was pushing itself beyond all previous limits. It created dozens of temporal echoes, making it appear as if an entire fleet of Vigilants was attacking the Khazari forces. The AI also began using techniques that defied comprehension, existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously and firing weapons that traveled backward through time. The AI is evolving again, Amy reported with amazement. It's rewriting its own programming to handle the system integration. I've never seen anything like it. Ben Turner was monitoring Khazari communications as the battle raged. The aliens are getting desperate, sir. Admiral Vekvar is ordering all ships to ram us if necessary. He knows we're preparing something that could end the war. Thousands of Khazari vessels began converging on the Vigilant's position, their crews ready to sacrifice themselves to stop the human ship. But the Vigilant's AI had anticipated this tactic. It created a series of pocket dimensions around the ship, causing enemy vessels to crash into empty space, while the Vigilant remained safely hidden in folded reality. Wormhole generation is at 50%, Amy announced. The power drain is incredible. We're pulling energy from life support, artificial gravity, even the emergency batteries. Jake watched the progress indicators while keeping one eye on the approaching dreadnought. The massive alien vessel was close enough now that he could see individual weapon batteries swiveling to track their position. One direct hit from those guns would end everything. 70%, Amy called out. The singularity drive is holding together, but barely. Hull stress is approaching critical levels. The Khazari dreadnought fired its main weapons, sending beams of pure energy that could melt asteroids. But the USS Vigilant existed in 3 different dimensions at once, and the enemy fire passed harmlessly through space where the ship had been moments before. 85%, Amy reported. Almost there, but the drive core temperature is reclining. We have maybe 30 seconds before catastrophic failure. Ryan Baker made a crucial discovery as he monitored the weapon systems. The gravitational fields are resonating with the wormhole generation process. If I time the next shot perfectly, I can amplify the effect. Do it, Jake ordered. The gravitational cascade cannon fired one final time, but instead of creating a destructive field, the weapon's energy merged with the singularity drive's dimensional manipulation. Space itself began to tear open in front of the Khazari dreadnought, revealing a tunnel that led to the empty void between galaxies. Wormhole is stable and expanding, Sue Collins reported with excitement. The gravitational pull is incredible. It's drawing in everything within 1,000 kilometers. Admiral Vekvar's final transmission was one of rage and disbelief as his massive dreadnought was pulled inexorably toward the dimensional rift. The vessel that was supposed to end human civilization disappeared into the wormhole, along with hundreds of supporting ships that were caught in the gravitational field. But the victory came at a terrible cost. The USS Vigilant systems were failing throughout the ship as the overloaded singularity drive began to tear itself apart. Alarms blared from every console as hull plates buckled under impossible stresses. Emergency shutdown, Amy yelled over the noise. All hands brace for impact. The ship shuddered and groaned as the AI fought to maintain hull integrity. For a terrifying moment, it seemed like the Vigilant would follow the Khazari dreadnought into the dimensional void. But gradually, the wormhole collapsed and space returned to normal. Jake looked around the damaged bridge and saw his crew picking themselves up from the floor. Outside the viewports, the remaining Khazari ships were retreating in confusion, their command structure destroyed along with their most powerful weapon. "Status report," Jake called out. "Singularity drive is offline and will need complete rebuilding," Amy reported. "But the ship is intact and life support is functional. We're alive, sir." Ben Turner was listening to alien communications with amazement. The Khazari fleet is in complete chaos. Without Admiral Dektavar and the Dreadnought, they don't know what to do. Many ships are surrendering or fleeing to their home territories. Over the following days, the news of the Vigilance victory spread throughout known space. The Khazari Dominion, which had seemed unstoppable just weeks before, began to collapse as conquered worlds declared their independence. The alien empire that had terrorized 3 star systems was falling apart. Messages poured in from dozens of different species, all thanking humanity for ending the Khazari threat. Some offered alliance and trade agreements, while others simply wanted to learn about the incredible technology that had made such a victory possible. President Daniel Hayes personally welcomed the USS Vigilant home when it limped back to Earth's orbital shipyards. The crew that had left as humanity's last desperate hope returned as the heroes who had changed the balance of power in the galaxy. "You've done more than save Earth," the president told Jake as they stood on the damaged bridge. "You've shown every civilization in this part of space that even the most overwhelming enemy can be defeated with courage and innovation." Dr. Alex Rodriguez was already planning improvements to the Singularity Drive technology. The lessons learned from the Vigilance Impossible battles would lead to new advances in physics and engineering that would benefit all of humanity. But perhaps the most important discovery was what the ship's AI had become during the conflict.